Sea of Thieves has some of the best core mechanics of any game in recent memory. The base game is amazing fun. And when I say the base game, I mean the core of what Sea of Thieves is all about. Sailing. Of course the game is about being a pirate too, we all know that, but you spend most of your time sailing your ship and those mechanics are fantastic, polished, the game looks gorgeous and it just works really well. When you join as a 4-player crew on a galleon and you've got one guy at the helm, others working the sails depending on the wind, perhaps repairing, checking the map, doing anchor turns to catch enemy ships, it really is fantastic. In fact, the sailing is so good that you can sometimes just get lost in it, sailing around. And the sailing is made even better by the fact that the water visuals and physics are just incredible. Again, some of the best I've ever seen in a video game. Ever, to be honest. The way that you crash over the waves, the way your ship moves about and creaks, and when the storm kicks in and the waves get higher and harder hitting, it really does change the dynamic of the game. Sadly, despite the core game being fantastic, I found the overall game pretty disappointing, and I don't think I'm going to play it much more until a substantial amount of new content is added, and I've no doubt that some other people who've bought the game feel the same. The game's got 3 merchants that offer you side quests to do. The Order of Souls, which has you heading to islands and killing skeletons, then the Gold Hoarders, which has you finding hidden treasure on islands via X marks the spot maps or riddles, and lastly the Merchant Alliance, which has you collecting and delivering animals like chickens, pigs and snakes. Now before we get into the meat and bones of this video, I just want to say that if you enjoy Sea of Thieves and you love it for what it is, then that's absolutely fine. I've heard several people who enjoy the game, they enjoy making their own fun in it, and they're happy with the amount of content that's there. And you've really got to give it to Rare, the developers of this game, for making something that looks beautiful. You can tell that they're really passionate about. There's no doubt that there's some amazing technical achievements in here, and it's a bit of a curveball and it's quite different from everything else that's come out in the last couple of years. But for me, having played it for several hours now, I just see a lot of missed opportunities and not much to do. So here's my first biggest issue with the game. The quests really lack in variety. If you're doing a Gold Hoarder quest, for example, it really is just go to this island, dig up the chest at this point, or follow some very simple riddles to get there. The same for the Order of Souls. You just go to an island, kill some skeletons and pick up their skulls. And then arguably the weakest quests of them all are the merchant quests, because the quests might want you to find, say, 3 chickens, but you can't do it while you're doing another quest. You've got to vote it down on the table like every other quest. This kind of thing should be a side quest for me. For instance, while you're doing another mission, you could just, I don't know, collect some chickens while on an island and hand them in when you get back. But sadly, you can't do that, and sometimes that can be quite frustrating. I thought that when you got to say level 20 or 25 in the Order of Souls and Gold Hoarders, that quests would get more difficult. The riddles might be harder, more variety, more mechanics, more puzzles. Something to always keep you entertained, surprised and guessing, but sadly, there's just none of that. Annoyingly, there doesn't even seem to be better loot for the higher level quests. It seems for all intents and purposes to be completely RNG. The only difference between the lower and high level quests is that the higher ones usually offer multiple chests on one island, but often they can be just basic castaway chests which are worth very little gold and almost no progression. There are other quests that you can find from bottles on the beaches, but guess what? They're just more of the same. Now if the combat in the game was actually interesting, then maybe that would somewhat make up for it, but it really isn't. All of the enemies are skeletons. And there are a few different types, but it's just not exciting. Basic skeletons go down very easily, but then you've got the shadow skeletons that become much more powerful at night time and require you to shine your lantern on them to stun them and weaken them. Then the gold skeletons that rust and get slower when they get hit with water, and some various other types, but it does little to really change up the way that you play the game, because the gunplay is pretty bad. The core of the game, the quests, the gunplay, the basic riddles, I think it's all made for a much younger audience, and that's very clear after playing for a small amount of time. You only get a few weapons, a sword, a pistol, a blunderbuss and a sniper. And I'm just sat there playing the game wondering, why aren't there more exciting quests in this game? There's just so much potential. Why, for instance, are there not quests where you take out AI captains or AI ghost ships? Why is there not a mission to take out a sea monster like the Kraken? rather than it just being a random, underwhelming event? Why is there not a mission to raid a fort and complete puzzles and riddles to get inside with NPC pirates or even animals that can attack you? I know there are little snakes in the game, but honestly, they just sit there, hiss and spit at you every now and again. They're more of an annoyance than an actual gameplay mechanic. You could easily incorporate NPC bad guys like lions and tigers and monkeys that swing around and attack you or something. It would all fit into this game. They've already got sharks in the water, so why isn't there more? Even the skeleton forts, which are cool to begin with, are very poor. It's just an island where waves of skeletons spawn and you've got to take them out. I think there's like 3 of them in total. After waves and waves, the captain spawns and you kill him and you get a ton of loot from the vault room. But you know what, you can just park your ship out front and cheese it in a way by just using the ship cannons to clear the waves far easier. Instead of that, why isn't this like a massive fort that you could attack and then go deep inside with puzzles to get there, where you've got to fight waves of enemies inside through various rooms as you progress further inside? Different enemies every time with different mechanics. It just feels like a complete waste of any potential. What about trade ships? Enemy AI ships just, I don't know, carrying supplies and you've got to hunt them down. Last seen in the waters near Snake Island, for instance, and you've got to find that ship, get to where it is, take it down, take the loot. Ship-to-ship combat really is the best thing about this game, and yet there's none of that in the actual missions whatsoever. As we mentioned at the start of the video, the sailing and the PvP ship battles with enemy galleons are the best part of Sea of Thieves at the moment. And I have to admit that it is a fantastic feeling when you land a cannon shot. You might board an enemy ship, you might sink it, and then you know what, you could steal all their loot, be a real pirate. In my time playing though, there simply hasn't been enough of that. Player encounters seem very infrequent, despite Rare saying that they wanted encounters every 15 to 30 minutes. And the cheesy tactic of getting an explosive barrel, swimming underwater and blowing up an enemy's bow to sink them really isn't that interesting when you've done it 2 or 3 times. When playing as a galleon, that's the 4-player ship, the big one, I found that we saw sloops fairly regularly, but galleons were very rare. Maybe as the player base grows that will improve, or there are just lots of solo players, I don't know. It could also be something that can be tweaked with the matchmaking to try and get more 4-player crews matched together in the same instance against each other. But there's a big problem with the PvP. Say we board another ship and they've got no loot, then what's the point of sinking them other than just for the sake of it? There isn't one. You get nothing for it. For instance, you don't get any pirate notoriety, which I think you should. And if your ship gets sunk, well, guess what? You lose nothing unless you've got loot on board. It costs 0 gold, 0 reputation or anything. Ships are just a throwaway item when they should be a massive key important component of the game. There's no big consequence to the PvP really. Perhaps it's just designed that way, but for me that really isn't that interesting. So instead, what if you had like a notoriety meter or rank, and if you sunk a ship, the enemy team could put a bounty on you, and that could build, and anyone that sunk you would get a gold reward for it, or perhaps it would just come up on their screen. Bounty, last seen around whatever island. That would be amazing, and it would really force players to play more PvP and think about sinking other ships, especially if they've got big loot on board. Now there are several more big problems with the PvP, and we're going to get onto them a bit later in the video. So what about the customization in the game? Well, we've got both player and ship customization. You can change the sails, the ship's paint and the figurehead. When it comes to your player, you can change your clothes, hat, peg legs, patches, even change your compass, your musical instruments. Everything can get a visual overhaul, but it is just cosmetic. The player customization I think is fine, but the ship customization is massively lacking and underwhelming. A few coloured ships, a few different coloured sails, and they're 70,000 gold each. That seems really grindy. And when you consider that the content itself at the moment isn't very exciting, that worries me. Why can we not change the helm or the captain's quarters? There are so many things on the ship that just aren't customizable, and that seems like a big oversight to me. Not only that, but there are some variants of the cosmetics that are 140,000 gold, and you buy it and the skin barely changes. It's literally just a colour change for some of them. How is some worth 70,000 more just because it's got a different colour? It doesn't make sense. A lot of the cosmetics are also behind progression walls. You can't access quite a few until you reach rank 50 with individual merchants. Right now that's roughly 200 hours. And I'm not even kidding. That's actually a generous estimate, I reckon, based on how the game currently works. The progression is really unbalanced right now. It's very grindy, boring, and I really hope that Rare look at the rewards pretty soon. Almost no one except for the really hardcore players and people who are grinding it on Twitch streams are going to ever get to Pirate Legend in its current state. Another point about ship cosmetics, there could be tables on the ships where you can put certain collectibles that you find throughout the world. Trophies, if you like. Perhaps you could change the captain quarters completely. What about some card games that you could play? Or checkers or chess? What about fishing? I don't think it would be an unrealistic thing to code in this game. You can even have quests around it. I heard that they're perhaps adding dice into the game, but again, these sort of little games to keep people occupied when they're travelling from A to B should have been in the game at launch. You could even have some non-cosmetic ship upgrades like say a harpoon or a more powerful cannon, a mortar cannon or perhaps some fiery cannonballs. Fire is something that's actually quite lacking in the game. Imagine being able to set fire to an enemy team's sails. In fact, what about sail damage? That could be a thing, slowing down your ship until you repair it. I mean, there's only 2 ships in the game as well. It's a pirate game and there's only 2 ships available. There should be way more than that in my opinion. We've established that the world is beautiful, the game looks fantastic, and while some of the islands are pretty cool, they're very similar in design and honestly, they just feel completely lifeless. Sure, you've got a few pigs, chickens and snakes roaming around, but honestly, it's pretty boring just wandering around them after a while. A massive lack of variety. Even the sea shanties, I admit, the first time I heard them, they were incredible. The way they harmonise, it's awesome, but there's like 3 or 4 of them. Why are there not more of them? They could be unlockable. Maybe you could do quests to unlock new shanties. And then we've got the Kraken. It was cool seeing the tentacles come out of the sea, but the mechanics of the fight, very disappointing. First off, for a galleon crew, it really isn't difficult to beat in the slightest, despite what Rare said. And secondly, it's just very bland, not the experience that I was expecting, and could have been so much more. I want to cover the elephant in the room too, which I did briefly mention earlier. I know that there's a new stage to the game when you reach Pirate Legend status, which is apparently available when you get to rank 50 across all 3 merchants. This is meant to offer a new pirate space, which is like a secret area under a waterfall, and something called Legendary Pirate Quests, but I doubt very much that they're going to offer anything vastly different to what's available already. If that part of the game was very different and exciting, I think based on the pressure that Rare are getting right now from people saying there's no content in the game, then they'd be shouting it from the rooftops and showing it off. And as I said, I don't think that it should be so hard to reach, because even playing 30 to 40 hours, I'm still nowhere near Pirate Legend level. They claim only a handful of people will reach this status, which makes me think that perhaps it isn't that great after all. There are, however, some hidden items in some spots on the map, and there could be some interesting places to visit when you get legendary status, so maybe a couple of interesting quests, but I can't say I'm optimistic. I think it's just going to be more of the same, but a bit harder. The legendary ship that you get when you reach legendary status is also apparently just a skin, so it's not even a whole new ship. If that's the case, then honestly, what's the point? If it's not going to offer new gameplay opportunities, then who really cares? There are some other noteworthy things I wanted to mention too. Firstly, I don't think that Sea of Thieves is a fun game to play on your own. Just doing the quests alone, it really isn't that fun. I think that the fun that you get in this game is with other player battles and against other ships. The random encounters with other players that you might fall into, and as a solo player you can't really do that very well. From my experience when I've played as a sloop, that's a solo ship, if I see a galleon they just fire at me, I run away, and that's that. That's happened so many times. And trying to steer, repair and do the sails on your own is very challenging. Not to mention if you're playing solo and you leave your ship unoccupied for long periods of time searching islands, that can be very risky if you're carrying loot. If you're playing in a crew of 2 or upwards, then you don't have to take that risk at all. Secondly, the ship spawning system really needs to be changed. At the moment, it's broken, it doesn't work. So right now, if you sink an enemy ship, they're going to respawn on a nearby island. And when I say nearby, it's usually the closest one to where the ship went down. This can lead to you thinking that you're spotting another enemy ship over and over again, but in fact, it's just the same guys that keep coming back. That's no fun. And it can also be abused. For example, if my crew decide to go to a skeleton fort and start doing it, and then another crew turn up, we might sink them, and then continue doing the skeleton fort. We get the gold, we put it all on our ship, they spawn at a nearby island, they come sailing back, they're stocked on cannonballs and wooden planks, we've got nothing left. It's very easy for them to sink us then and take our treasure, but guess what? We're going to spawn nearby too, we can just do the same again. And you just get stuck in this horrible loop. There's no real finality to the PvP sometimes. Oh, they've sunk us, don't worry, we're just going to spawn at the nearest island, come back, sink them. Another example, if you manage to knock an enemy player off their ship and then the ship moves further away, there's no consequence for that because they can just wait till the mermaid spawns and teleport back to their ship. So then what's the point of you knocking them off in the first place, or let's say raising their anchor so their ship starts sailing away, when they can just teleport back to it? Maybe Rare should think about adding like a PvP cooldown on the mermaid. If there's been PvP in the last couple of minutes, the mermaid won't spawn. Also, why isn't there any stats in the game for sinking enemy ships or searching wrecked ships, enemy kills? Why is there not like a trophy wall on your ship or in the menu where you can see all of the cool things that you've done? In fact, I think there should be some sort of pirate hideout, unless of course they plan on doing something similar with the legendary pirate hideout, but that just seems like one place for all. I think the game is really missing a social outpost too, with lots of NPCs or a proper town, not just a small island with a few tents. I'd love to see some sort of flare system too. It's so frustrating when you're on an island and you're trying to tell your friends, hey, it's over here, southeast. Where are you? You know what? Fire a flare up and you'll be able to find them. Just either let them show up when on an island together or have a simple flare system. There's also quite a few annoying bugs in the game. If the game thinks you're stuck, it just teleports you back to your ship, even when you actually weren't stuck at all. And this can be abused in PvP too. Hey, you're being attacked, you're about to die, boom, no worries, jump in between some rocks and you're spawned back on your ship, safe and sound. The PvP in general is just really cheesy. There's so many dirty tricks that you can do that I don't think are intentional and by design. Another issue I have with the game is that there's no story. There's no backstory, no story elements around the world, no story missions. It's actually quite surprising. And there's an argument to be made that says, hey, Rare want you to make your own stories, but I don't really think that you can rely on other real people, real players to make stories for you. Most of the time, the people I've come across in this game either just attack me straight away, they don't use a microphone, or they'll just run away. It's very rare to find someone who's actually interested in speaking to you and collaborating. I'm sorry, but you just can't rely on other players to make content in a game for you. Yes, they can be an addition to the content, but I really think that you need the meat and bones there in the first place. Even the NPCs that are there, you know what? They just hand you quests or alcohol. The stuff that they tell you just isn't that interesting or compelling. Again, more missed opportunities. Why aren't there epic quests in the game to go and hunt down sea monsters? You know, you turn up to a village and there's a guy who's panicking and he says, hey, we've just spotted a hydra or we've just spotted a kraken out to the southeast. Can you go and find out what happened? You sail out to the southeast. Oh, there's a shipwreck and there's some dead guys. You check them out. There's a few clues. One of the survivors is still breathing and he tells you with his dying breath, the last thing we saw was a tentacle out near this island. You go there, boom, you find the Kraken, you have a little skirmish with it, you hit it, you injure it, it swims away, it goes somewhere else, but you follow the trail of ink in the water. You realise, hey, we're going to need a bigger weapon to kill this thing. An NPC tells you that there's a guy who can make a harpoon on a certain island. You go there, you gather materials for him, he makes you a harpoon, you attach the harpoon to your ship, you sail back to where the Kraken was, you fight it, you kill it, and it actually gives you something cool, a tangible reward or customizable option, a ton of gold, because at the moment after you defeat the Kraken, you get nothing as far as I can tell. What happened to all of the epic Goonies style quests? Long storylines that take you to different parts of the world and different locations and you're fighting different enemies. None of that's here and that's just so sad. The PvP element could factor into that too. You could have legendary ghost ships that sail the sea at night time and then you've got like a mini boss battle on your hands, random encounters like that, instead of just every enemy being a skeleton that you can kill with a sword or a shotgun. Now, a big caveat to this is that Sea of Thieves is also available on the Xbox Game Pass, even if you play on PC. And what that means is that you can get the Game Pass subscription for around £8 in the UK, let's say, and then you can access a multitude of Xbox games as long as you keep paying the subscription every month. And guess what? Sea of Thieves, the full game, is one of those games on the list, and that means you can essentially play the game right now for around £8. What's more is that you can actually get a 14-day trial, so essentially play a long demo for free. And 14 days at the moment, let me tell you, is plenty of time to get all of the content done in the game. Now I think Microsoft could regret this because right now I don't think that they're going to get a lot of repeat customers until more content is added to the game. As a Game Pass game though, it's definitely worth it, but as a full priced game, which is what this is, in its current state, I really don't think it is. Now I've heard a lot of people say you make your own fun in this game, and whilst I accept that that's partly true, the core of the game behind that still needs to be fun and worthwhile. I don't pay £60 for a game to rely on other people coming in and out of my game for me to just have fun. What if I don't see any other players in a 4-hour session? What if I don't see any other ships or have any interesting encounters, because that's happened to me? Is that my fault? I accept that you can have fun with any game if you play with friends and make the fun for yourself, but the game behind it still needs to offer enough to keep people interested when nothing else is happening. And Sea of Thieves just doesn't for me. I totally understand that some people love this game and they play it all the time. They love the amount of content in it. That's fine. And I don't care about that. I'm really happy for them. But as I said at the start of the video, it's just disappointing to me. They've been working on this game for 4 to 5 years and I just see a load of missed opportunities. It makes me sad, and I don't mean to come across as like a really entitled customer, because I'm totally not. Like, I see the potential in this game and it could be something absolutely amazing. I'd love it to be. I want this to be the ultimate pirate game, and it can be. It just needs so much more than it currently offers though. Maybe in a couple years time, Sea of Thieves could be packed full of content and way more cool things to do, but right now it just feels very empty to me. I'm confident though that down the line, Rare can really add to this game and fill it with compelling content and quests, because the core of the game is incredible and it's given me some gaming experiences that I haven't had before. I just wish that there was more there. Either way, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give me a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you in the next one.